All right, guys, Josh here with Wired Watt Smart. Today, I have my friend Shane Schrader on the podcast. He was a lineman for a number of years, and I met Shane just last year, actually playing golf with some friends, and we had a great conversation that day. And I wanted to have him on so I could learn a little bit more about him and what he's doing now in his day to day. He's kind of an entrepreneurial kind of guy. He's kind of into a lot of different things, but he's also a blue collar guy who has spent a lot of time as a lineman in the trades. And so, yeah, man, I'm going to let Shane introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, Shane Schrader, up here in Central Washington, and yeah, you pretty much said it all, man. I mean, I'm not too complicated of a guy, but yeah, started out right out of high school. The gal I was dating at the time, her dad worked for the power company as a mechanic for the line shop. And I'd kind of been tinkering on like his jet boat and stuff with him. So he knew I was kind of mechanical. I've always been a very mechanical guy, right? Changing the
Yeah,
transmissions on first truck in the driveway and, you know, stuff like that, always building ramps when I was a kid to skateboards,
right.
and in the dirt, building dirt jumps for the bikes and riding motocross and stuff like that. So that kind of came naturally, the blue collar thing. And then he saw that and he was like, hey, dude, you need to get down to San Francisco, go take this test. Like you'd fit in perfect with these guys. And so that kind of like started that journey, right?
Yeah,
Um, Thank God for him because I did that, and then they had a hiring freeze, went through a couple things, and then all of a sudden they called back and they were like, hey, as a kid when I was 15, I did concrete work with my neighbor. So I learned forms and concrete and all that stuff, right? Rebar. And so actually the tower department of Pacific Gas and Electric, I was living down in Northern California,
okay.
and the tower department called me up and they're like, hey, dude, like we got an opening for you. It looks like you qualify for all this stuff. And you would like to come for an interview. And so that kind of started the whole journey right there. And once I got into tower department, I knew what line department was. And tower, we did lots of steel. So I got to climb, I got to use big cranes, learn rigging, learn the nuts and bolts of like putting together steel and also doing footers,
Yeah,
a lot of footing work. And then we'd work with the line department, right? If they had to like take off the wire and, unbundle things, and then we would change out like an arm or do a tower extension or,
yeah.
and we got to fly with helicopters. So it was my introduction to using helicopters on the job. Um, and then I said, I want to be a lineman, which that was my first like initial step to recognizing that sometimes you have to take like a wage loss, to improve yourself, right? And step back from just like looking at it as just a money thing. Um, I had made towerman as a journeyman, and I think they were like $35 an hour. Back then it was killer, right?
Right.
And then I had to drop back down to apprentice wage to go into line department, back down to like 20 bucks an hour. But I knew, a journeyman lineman, they were making like close to 60. So I knew in a 4 year span I was going to be there, and opportunities for that were way greater.
So you started out in what department was it?
Tower department.
Tower. And so those are like the high voltage towers that they
Mm,
string high voltage lines on.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
like big erector sets, and they're
totally.
sitting on big concrete footings.
That's it. Yep,
Okay.
yep. So we were going out and doing big jobs with replacing those. Upgrades require bigger pieces of steel. Just things modified.
Yeah.
Inspections to build them out in the middle of a farm field. A lot of the stuff when they originally built all the infrastructure, there was wide open farm fields, right? They can get
Yeah.
every piece of equipment there. Well, now that things get built up around them, you've got to figure out how to do things sometimes manually, almost go back to old school where you don't have the equipment there. So you've got to use gin pulls, and you've got to use a lot more rope rigging and stuff like that,
Yeah.
capstans and stuff like that. So that was really cool to learn all that stuff. It got me in the door in that trade in the utility world. And then, of course, I just excelled from there. I was highly motivated to become a lineman. So taking the test weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. I was always been pretty good at math just from figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
Like a lot of blue collar guys, if you give us a tape measure, we can go figure it out. But if you're doing it on paper, sometimes it's harder, right?
Absolutely.
So it kind of just fit, man. It fit really well. We did a lot of traveling around. We went to other states on storm and did emergency response. We were kind of they called us like the Blue Angels of the utility world because in the utility world, you have a lot of maintenance departments. And then we were like the one-off construction department that kind of roamed around everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And we were like our own budget. We were our own bosses. It was really cool. Had access to all kinds of equipment. We worked on 500 kV all the way down to a little streetlight stuff.
Yeah.
So a wide array of experience in that. Doing a lot of cutovers from say like a 4 kV cutover to a 12 kV or a 4 kV to a 21 system. Just a lot of different upgrades. They'd bring us in because we had the manpower to kind of take out, like, say, a whole city block and put it all underground, right?
Right.
We would do all that kind of stuff. So
So
that was cool.
so what did that apprenticeship look like? Like how long did
Mhm.
that take to become a journeyman lineman?
Yeah, right at the time, it was 4 years.
Okay.
I got granted 6 months of experience, so mine was only 3.5. Um, they walk you through. That was probably, I've been to a lot of utilities now. I've been a lot of different states. I've seen a lot of different programs. I've been heavily involved on the union side of stuff like that.
Yeah.
The training side now, later on in my career, and really that was a good, well-rounded apprenticeship. I'm not just saying that because it was me going through it, but
Right.
just from an outsider's perspective. But I mean, you start out on the ground, learning the connectors, learning the tools, learning how the operations of the crew work, your crew structures, what all that looks like, right? Just I remember the earliest memory I have of all that stuff was like I came home after, this was in Tower Depart. I came home after working like a 10-hour shift with a hard hat on my head. My neck hurt so bad, dude. So like shit like that, you don't realize, but it's like
Right.
just little things.
Yeah.
And then, once I got into the apprenticeship, you're getting taught rigging. They had a whole school we'd go to for a week, I think every like 3 months or something, whether it was climbing school or it was Class A truck driving school or, all the way up into hot sticking and rubber glove classes
Yeah.
and helicopter classes and rigging classes and, all of the stuff that we really needed to be proficient at our job and safe at our job. They did a really good job at providing for us.
Right on, man.
Yeah, it's
And
good.
that was all in Northern California?
That was all in Northern California, yeah, and then,
Yeah.
2010, I got married in 2009, 2010, we were, like, done with the politics of California, and
Yeah.
things were changing, and I'm like, "You know what, man? We need to progress our lifestyle a little bit, get back to a little bit more small town feel, where maybe the money will go a little bit farther."
Yeah.
And we kind of looked all around, and Washington kind of fit a lot of the check boxes. So we decided to move up here. And I said, I really enjoyed just working for the people more, not so much like the corporate stuff.
Yeah.
And the PUDs kind of fit that bill. So I like that mentality. There's great guys. It was almost more of like a fire department feel, where you have local dudes, care about the community. The management all the way, down loved the community. So
Right on.
they were more for providing just a service for the people.
So did you grow up in this area or did you grow up down there in
Mhm.
California?
No, I actually grew up in Southern California, kinda moved around a little bit,
Okay.
and then moved up to Northern California, living with parents and stuff, they're with their jobs and their careers and stuff, and then, no, we just made the move up here, man. Yeah, just came up, checked it out. My parents were already up here, they're over on the west side,
Uh-huh.
so we got to see the area a little bit, we'd visited and stuff. But mainly it was just, when I was in the union side of things, it was who has the best protections for us, who has the highest wages, what are the best working conditions. I looked at all that stuff,
Right.
just like I think any business decision should be made. And it fit the bill, man. No state income tax, um, stuff like that made it really, really good place to be.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Right on, man. That's good. So you grew up in Southern California. Is that where you got into dirt bikes?
Yeah, man. That
Yeah.
that was the
That's like the Mecca down
Oh,
there.
dude, people don't believe me. I don't like telling all these stories because it's almost like a one-up story, and I hate
Yeah.
that shit, but it's
Yeah.
like, when I grew up in San Diego and we would go down to the Encinitas Y, and if anybody that knows the history of skateboarding or anything like that was the place, dude. That's where Tony Hawk trained. That's where, all these guys, right?
Yeah.
And so like, Sean White, I remember going and I was at the skate park with him, my mom was like, "Yeah, did you see that the guy you're skateboarding with? He was on the big half pipe." I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Yeah, that kid's name's Sean." And that was Sean White, right?
That's
So,
that's crazy.
growing up surfing too, like, you're next to all these pro surfers all day long because you're surfing at the spots that they are.
Yeah.
And so it was cool, on dirt bike riding, like, being out in like Ocotillo Wells, Glamis, that
Yep.
that was during the heyday of all that stuff, the metal militia and like,
Right. That's when
y-
that
you know,
that's like when that whole big movement kind of happened,
yeah,
early 2000s, late 90s.
yeah. So it was
Yeah.
cool, that's kind of what set a lot of my culture, of all that stuff. Like I love that stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I strive to get to is just a little tiny beach house and go surfing every day.
right on.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
it's
So
fun.
so you went through the apprenticeship, you learned the lineman stuff. How long did you stay in that career, man?
Let's see. I left in January 2024.
Okay.
And so pretty recent, not, I mean, recently
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But, you know, before that, I had like some rentals and did some other like entrepreneurial kind of things on the side. Like I was a farmer
Right.
too. So I have a farm too. I got into farming when I moved over here to Central Washington. I bought a farm. I set up all my hay equipment. I was started a hay brokerage. So once I ran out of selling my hay, I had customers that were like, "Hey, we need more hay," and I just being in the valley, um, I knew other farmers that had hay, and I was like, "Hey, dude, you guys mind if I buy your hay and sell it over here?" And they're like, "No way, dude, go for it." So I bought trucks and trailers and trucked it over to the west side
Yeah.
and made money that way and had a hay brokerage company. And I quickly figured out, how much capital it takes to be a farmer and to own land and to, own equipment. It was a lot, and I didn't have that much at the time, so that was
Yeah.
a little improperly sized for me. I had the will and the gusto. I mean, I built a lot of stuff, man, and I still have my farm ground and I lease that out. So it's still now it's another um, means of income, which is
Yeah.
cool. But I learned a lot. That was the most important thing. I look back now is I just learned a lot, man. What accountants were, what bookkeepers were, what it meant to hire somebody to help me out. What fuel costs were, how to run books.
Yeah.
Just normal business stuff that I had never seen before.
But you just kinda figured that shit out on your own though, right?
Pretty much. I
Like,
mean,
I mean, obviously, everybody's hopping on YouTube and doing their own research to
oh,
kinda
we didn't
figure
have
the
that, dude.
but that's I mean, that's how I did it too, man. I just
Yeah,
jumped in feet first, and it's like, just kinda figured it out as I went.
yeah.
Definitely had an accountant help me with some of that stuff, but,
Mhm.
that's the best way, man. You just kinda put yourself in a position where you gotta figure it out, and
Yeah.
it's amazing what you can just kinda sort through.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? Like, as you see, if we all knew how thick the brick wall was, we'd
Yeah.
never try, dude,
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
that I had that going for me. I also just learned how to ever since I was a young kid, whether it was growing up skateboarding, like, I was always hanging out with the high school dudes when I was in junior high, right?
Yeah.
Because they were better at skateboarding. Or if whatever I was doing, right? The surfers, same thing. All the way up until, even with the linemen, going through an apprenticeship, there was always the journeyman there, right? I need to get with that journeyman. He's a badass. He knows what's going on. His
Right.
shit's straight. He's cut clean. Let's get with that dude, right? Well, I want to work for that foreman because he gets the badass jobs. He knows what he's doing. His shit's not always sorry for cussing.
No, no, that's good.
It's not always messed up everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be on those kick-ass crews.
Right.
And then same thing with farming. I found the oldest farmer in the valley and I went and talked with him. I said, "Hey dude, how does this work?" And you know, dude, you talk about building hay bales. There's an art to that. Hey, when can I plant my alfalfa? What kind of seed bed do I need? What kind of piece of equipment does this? When do I need to, what time of the night do I need to cut? What time of the night do I need to look at baling? All these things, right? So I just asked those guys that were in the experienced
Yeah.
chairs and just glommed onto them and just took everything in. And I do the same thing in my real estate business. Do the same thing with buddies. I mean, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is I want to learn.
Do you find it, or have you found it hard, in some of those situations, like when you're trying to find, a little bit of mentorship from somebody who knows those things? Do you ever find it hard to like find people that are willing to, give you that information, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know what? I really haven't.
Yeah.
I think I'm a pretty personable guy. I've been in a lot of weird social situations as far as learning to make friends, and I moved around a lot. So to me, like going and talking with people was almost normal
Uh-huh.
because I had to survive, right? To make
Yeah.
friends, to learn, to do all these things. Um, Sometimes the farmers are obviously a different breed, right? They don't have to care about your emotions or what you are, who you are. You have to prove it to them. So a lot of times it meant, me just being out in the field on my tractor for 18 hours a day and them seeing that.
Yeah.
Then I was allowed to ask a question to them. And they'd be like, "Hey man, you're looking really good out there, Why don't you try and do this?" And they would see that, right? And I think in the entrepreneur world, it seems kind of closed off because everyone's in their own little world doing their own little thing.
Right.
But those people have been like the strongest, like, um I don't know what you'd call it, but like if you ask them questions or if they understand who you are and what you're doing, they will give their life to you. Like they will give their world of information to you because they want to see you succeed. They know how hard it is.
Yeah.
They know that there's no school. They know that there's no like they're the only ones, right? And a lot of people are really excited, especially nowadays where it seems like entrepreneurship's almost dead, or maybe just in our culture, it's just it seems like it's heavily frowned upon almost, right? Sometimes,
Yeah.
and and they know like, dude, this guy's going for it. Like, hey, I'll give you a helping hand. You can't just you got to provide value, right? Whenever you go to somebody, always look at how can I provide value to them first, and then start asking the questions, and then start to kind of dive in, right? You got
Absolutely.
to earn their ear a little bit per
Yeah.
se, and that goes a long ways, man.
Yeah, it does, and yeah, that's kind of my same take on that. Over the years, I've had guys that have definitely been willing to pour into me and give me information,
Mhm,
but it's after we've kind of built that rapport a little bit, right? And
mhm,
I've had a couple of other electrical contractors that are much bigger fish than me, and
mhm,
like, oh, okay, man, you've been doing it for a few years now. You're gonna take some bigger swings. Like, here's how we did this. Here's how we scaled
mhm.
and that stuff definitely helps, and you're right, man, like, there is no school for the entrepreneurial stuff, right? And so, if you can find a mentor or somebody who's willing to pour into you,
Mhm.
it's so valuable.
Yeah, totally, man. And I don't know how it is exactly with like competition in different industries. I can imagine there's nuances to all of it,
Yeah,
but I've always been one of those people, and I've worked for a lot of different bosses. You're working for a good boss when you're like, "Hey, man, I found a new pathway I'm going to take. I'm going to level up," and that boss is like over exaggerated for you, right? Yes,
yeah,
it sucks he's losing an employee, right?
yeah,
But those are the types of dudes. Same thing in entrepreneurship, right?
yeah,
When you're talking, like you're saying, you're talking to a bigger electrical contractor. He's smart enough, he's comfortable enough, he's already set in what he's doing. He knows it's time for me to give back. I should be proud that these young guys are bringing up these next companies, right? And getting in the industry because they're representing correctly, they're holding their own correctly. And if they're smart, then they're going to be like, "Hey, you know what? I want to mentor that guy because when he does really good and he builds up enough of a little nest egg, then maybe I'll sell my business to him."
yeah,
You know what I mean? Or strategically partner with him to bring him in on maybe it's not like my full general contract of electrical business, but maybe it's this new product that we have rights to. And I want him to run this part. So I want him to bring him in as a partner, right?
yeah,
And so a smart businessman, and the way I've been taught is that you look at things with that angle, right? You always want to have a buddy you can call in your industry. Like in my real estate business, right? I was always taught to like, there's always value. Even if another wholesaler called me up and he was like, "Hey, dude, I've got a deal. I can't find a buyer. Let's JV on this thing, right? Let's form a quick partnership. Hey, dude, I got a perfect buyer for that. Cool.
yeah,
Like him making 50% of that deal is way better than him making zero,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So and that, dude. Once you figure that kind of stuff out, business becomes a lot easier.
It does, man, and I'll be 100% honest with you, it took me a while to figure that out. Like, it took me a while to figure out that mindset of, um to not be so guarded with my stuff and to
Mhm,
not look at every other contractor as like direct competition.
mhm,
And kind of the other thing, and you hear a lot of the entrepreneurial guys talk about this, right? They'll say, what you put out into the world is what you're going to get back, right? And so it's like if you're sitting there hoping that your competitors like go out of business or they fail, like if you really think that, like
mhm.
that shit's going to come back to you
Oh, for sure, man.
and it does, I've seen it,
Yeah.
and but man, it's taken me a while to figure that out,
Mhm,
and, but now, dude, I want those guys to do good.
mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's still a part of me that wants to beat them when we're bidding against on the same jobs,
Right.
and you have to have that in you as well,
Mhm.
but I don't wanna see any of my competitors go out of business, or I
Right.
don't wanna see them financially struggle.
Mhm.
I genuinely want those guys to do well for them and their employees.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many aspects to business you look at like that stuff. But if you look at it as a whole, like let's just say in the electrical industry, if your competition is struggling and they're going out of business, that's not good for you either,
Right.
right? If they're not putting their best foot forward and maybe they're giving, you know, maybe it's let's say there was two electrical contractors in a market area and the other one's doing a really poor job at customer relations, just giving up phone calls back, getting bids out, stuff like that, right? The basics of business. that puts a poor sour taste in everyone's mouth. Those are 50% of the customers in the market area. Now
Yeah.
you got to go try and revive those. Now it's that much harder for you, right? It's kind of like the mattress store theory, right? Where you have three or two mattress stores right on the same corner, and people go, "Why do they put them right next to each other? It's direct competition." Well, if you're smart and you understand business, you know that like all of your marketing dollars, whether it's theirs or yours, are all bringing people into your same exact locale. They're seeing you right across the street. And if they don't buy from you, they might buy from your partner. And if they don't buy from your partner, they're going to buy from you. And so if they get a good, vibe of like, oh, someone says, hey, where do I buy a mattress? Oh, dude, you got to go down these three stores right on the corner. They're all super cool. Go see what they all got. They all offer different brands. They're going to buy something, right?
Right.
And everybody wins, right? So it's the same thing in the service industry too, because we hire different electrical contractors, different plumbers, different, and if I get like, I'm like, oh, dude, that guy's terrible. He's making plumbers look bad.
Yeah.
And then I get a kick ass A player, and it's like, I wish more guys were like this, right? And in business, you learn really quickly that it's so much easier to beat out the competition. You literally just have to pick up the phone, call people back, be there on time, do a decent job. You don't have to do the best job. You just have to do a decent job because
Yeah.
everybody expects things not to go perfect. But how do you stand up and how do you fix those? How do you move on from it? How do you make people happy? Do that kind of thing, right? And you're going to beat out your competition.
Yeah.
Just how it
Absolutely.
works.
Yeah. So at what point did you start dabbling with real estate, man?
Yeah, I think it just started out. Being a lineman, you do make good money. I
Yeah.
think, I don't know. I've never made under 100 grand since the day I started, and that's just the industry. I worked a lot more hours.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you can do the
Because
math at
because in
20
that
bucks an hour.
industry, I mean, I just talked to a lineman on a hookup a couple days ago, and
Mhm.
it's like, hey, how busy are you guys? I always ask people lately because it's no
Yeah,
secret things are slower right now.
sure.
And he's like, we're getting 40, but he's like, we need our overtime back, you know. And but he kind of told me, he's like, we as a lineman, that's where they make all their money, is working overtime.
It is. It really is, man. If you look at our base wages, it's no more than driving a truck, basically. I mean, you can make just as much.
Yeah.
But you do make it in the overtime. And the overtime varies from if you're on a construction crew or if you're like in a maintenance yard or something like
Yeah.
that. Um, but I mean, for me, it was like I was around like all these other linemen. They're making decent money. Now they got to figure out what to do with it because really quickly you figure out like, hey, we're in the highest tax bracket now. Now we're getting taxed. A bunch of our wages are going away. So how do we play that game? That
Yes.
really introduced me to like having to get smart to save my money, to make it go farther, to make it more worthwhile. A lot of guys were just had a couple rentals, and that was easy to me because I'd always worked on my own house. I was
Yeah.
mechanical, right? I knew buddies in the trades, and I just started buying those and working on those. And then it just evolved into like, hey, figuring out getting with the right mentors. I have paid for to be a part of a lot of different little communities.
Yeah.
And within those, you're next to the dudes that are doing it. Um, Once I learned like what a real estate professional was, what a real estate investor was, how they used banks' money, how they used, hard money, how they use their own money, um, all the back end stuff that you don't really see or it's not talked about a whole lot on social media or stuff like that. And that really kind of opened my eyes to like, okay, I have a wife, she's got her own career, and it kind of made sense for me to go on my own and go for that.
Yeah.
Once you understand all these different tax rules around real estate professionalism and how you can use that to not hide money but put it in the right spots and not get taxed on it and then
Absolutely.
have all those tax burdens be um taken away, just like gone. We haven't paid taxes in a long time
Yeah.
because of some of that stuff. And it's growing our wealth, right? It's been put into real estate the way that the government is incentivizing. That's literally why they write the tax code the way it is. They want us as a society to help provide housing for the rest of America.
Yeah.
So once I kind of figured out those things, of course, it took a lot of listening to podcasts, reading books. Um, to be honest with you, I quit drinking alcohol. Mind clarity was
Yeah.
shot up. Um, just being around other A players, meeting guys like you in your exact situation, where we got great businesses. They're trying hard. They're thinking ahead. What's going on? What's the next move? Right? What is everyone doing? And it just like morphed into like this ball of what it is now.
Yeah.
And it's going even farther and faster now than I can almost hang on to. So it's getting real exciting now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So do you so on the real estate side of things, like do you so I know we've talked multiple times,
Hmm.
like you wholesale.
Hmm.
Is that like your target in the real estate is to do the wholesale deals, or are you like wholesaling to find the best deals for yourself and then
Hmm.
you flip the houses? Like,
Hmm.
if you don't mind disclosing, like
Yeah.
what's your game plan per se with that stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of changed. In the beginning, like wholesaling is a means to an end, right? It's not necessarily a wealth building tool. It can be. It's a tool, right? It's a tool
Yeah,
in your tool belt. Understanding how to transact real estate. So for those that don't know what wholesaling real estate is we find off market deals. Um, we have a sales and marketing team set up. We go out and we write up purchase and sale agreements, contracts to purchase houses. If we have an investor that is looking for that same type of property, we can assign that contract and basically sell it and then there's a margin to be made in between that, right?
yeah,
And so we make that gap. And then that investor would take over that property, they purchase it, and they get to flip it or keep it as a rental or whatever they're going to do, right? So that's the gist of that.
right, right.
I did do a lot of flipping, and you're right. When I first started, I was finding all these deals, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can get going on these deals. And man, I had like four flips at one time going at one time, and trying to manage those as like a project manager
That's a lot.
slash like run a full time marketing and sales team
Yeah,
to keep on. You got to keep that wheel going to keep those deals coming in, right? And that's a whole thing in itself. And if you let that slow down, now your deals aren't coming in
yeah.
because you've been focused on your flips. And so there's like this battle. And I just said, you know what? Some of my good mentors said, dude, you got to pick one or the other because you can't split your brain power that far. And I said I want to do the wholesaling thing because I like that. I did really good at it. I had a good buyer network set up with it. I understand it a lot.
Yeah.
Because I was a flipper, right? A lot of these wholesalers never flipped a house in their life. They don't understand what goes into the renovation, what
The
the project scale looks
yeah,
like.
they're pretty much buying contracts, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're just buying and selling the contracts, which you can
Yeah,
do, but you got to be aware. Like if you're dealing with one of those wholesalers, he's going to try. All he's doing is just selling you a contract. Whereas I feel like with me, I've built a good customer base amongst my investors. They know, like, hey, dude, Shane's giving us good pictures. He knows he's giving us the inside detail on like structural beams, and I'm getting underneath the house. I'm crawling in the attic. Like most wholesalers don't do that.
yeah,
So they know they got someone to at least rely on. So that's been kind of like I said, a means to an end. Now I realize, okay, that can generate some capital, and then what do I do with the capital is like the ultimate story, right? Like
yeah,
I didn't want to be more in the residential space, so I went out and I once again bought into. I have a really good network of guys, so I bought into one of their programs. I learned commercial real estate, how to underwrite it, what are all these different definitions of things? How does it work? What does it look like? How do we underwrite it? How do we transact it? Right? What does that all look like? So I spent about 6 months learning all of that, and then I said, you know what? I see that commercial real estate is really where I want to be. So I don't like the rules that Washington State has put in place for being a landlord and stuff like that. They just make it
yeah,
more difficult.
100%.
And uh, I ultimately found that self storage was where I wanted to be, what I wanted to be in. So I started, getting with those guys, right? Talking to them, seeing what it was about, figure out how to underwrite it, what are the nuances in that business. And ultimately, it led to we're building a self storage facility now.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're about to break ground on that later this summer, and that'll be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I just had to simplify things down too. I had my hands in all kinds of different things.
Right. Yeah.
I built an RV park at my farm, so we have that. Just a lot of different things, right? But one thing that really made me feel comfortable and was falling back on all the knowledge of my blue collar skills, right? Using an excavator for excavating, using survey tools. I mean, just laying in conduit, laying
Yeah.
in water pipe, all the plumbing stuff. So like, I'm really trying to lean on all that stuff because it's natural to me, and especially right now, we're like, you probably don't want to hear this, or maybe your listeners won't care, but your customers would be like, man, this guy's crazy, right? But the inflation has happened, right? And on the labor
100%.
side of things,
Yeah.
when I first started getting into investing, you could afford in a project to hire out everything, right?
Yeah.
Electrical is hired out, plumbing's hired out, flooring's hired out, roofing, everything. Now you have to do a lot of stuff in house to make those margins work,
To make it pencil.
to make it pencil,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
And so
Yeah.
I tell a lot of younger investors too. I'm like, hey man, we have a huge advantage at this moment right now because us as blue collar guys, we can leverage our labor And at the end of a project, it's going to come out compoundingly higher
Yes.
on the profit side because we did our own labor cheaper,
Hmm.
right? And and before it wasn't like that. You could take a regular white collar dude, could hire everything out and go make money. Right now, they're losing money. I know they are.
Yeah.
They can't make things work because they don't literally have a bucket of tools
Yeah.
that they can go out and do flooring for themselves and save themselves, whatever it is. Um, they can't do a lot of the little nitpicky things that you got to figure out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So right now, we literally have, as a blue collar guy, if you have a little bit of knowledge, you can get way farther ahead right now. It's not always like that. And it won't always be like that. But right now it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. This last flip that I did, I mean, there was a lot of it that we did in house.
Mm-hmm.
I paid some of my apprentices to paint and to do a lot of different things, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's 60-70% cheaper than hiring it out to a contractor.
Right.
And yeah, man, I mean, I listen to a ton of flipping podcasts and real estate stuff, all the time. and
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of those experts are saying the same thing, man, that
Mm-hmm.
it's just there's not enough meat on the bone right now,
Mm-hmm.
to be hiring everything out. Everybody's got to
Mm-hmm.
be super budget conscious.
Yeah, man, it's a tight world, man. And I always like a lot of mentors right now. I'll say, hey, if you can build a real estate business right now and make it work as far as investing side, when the times are good, you're going to be flying.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, that's for sure. And it's some things you have to, like electrical stuff, right? If it is a rental, if it's electric, like a panel replacement,
Yep.
circuit replacement, stuff like that, by law, by insurance, you want to have that professionally done. Same thing with plumbing too, right?
Right.
Roofing, here or there. There's good roofers I know that are cheap that do the job good too,
Yeah.
But when it comes to like those other things, especially in the commercial world, there's no way you have to have it done professionally by a licensed bonded contractor.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I do in my experience, it is better to have those guys that know what's going on. They're A players because they won't have callbacks, right? I mean, I don't know how many times I went the cheap route and it's like, man, hey, this is broken again. They have to come back out and fix it. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know what, that just sucks, right? Just get it done right the first time.
Yeah.
It's good. Especially with flipping, selling flips to people, you want to make sure you're putting out a good product. If it's a rental, it's on your dime if it breaks, really,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
but you want to make sure you're putting out a good product too.
Yeah. Right on, man. So, um, I mean, with that being said, so kind of your business plan moving forward then is to stay, you're still going to be doing some of the wholesaling stuff, but you're
Mhm.
trying to go more into the commercial like storage unit side of things.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly where we're headed. Yeah, just start building those up, and they're a business within real estate. There's a lot of businesses that are like that, whether it's a car wash or I don't know, laundromat or
Hmm.
of course now we have Airbnbs and rent by the rooms and
Right.
all these other aspects of real estate that are essentially their own business within that real estate, right? But they take time. Real estate's a long-term game. It can be short-term, obviously, with wholesaling and stuff like that.
Right.
But for as far as wealth building and building an actual business off of it takes a while. So the self storage is the ultimate plan. Once we get that done and get that tool under our tool belt, we'll just grow it from there.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I want to shove all the money into because it's just from past history of looking at the what self storage has done through all different types of economies. It does well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a real estate mentor that I chat with, and I've done a few deals with him, and
Mhm.
he told me one of the things he told me once was uh trailer parks and storage units are the closest things you can get to growing money.
Dude, it's crazy, man. Yeah, I know a lot of my really good buddies that are into mobile home parks, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's there, man. It's just how it works.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So at what point in your lineman career did you kind of decide that you wanted to do something else? Was there like a pivotal moment, or was it like, hey man, I'm getting older, like I want to do
Hmm.
something that's a little easier on the body?
Hmm.
Like what did that decision look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, as I kind of ventured down this whole mindset change, per se, I think one pivotal moment was I looked at our foremen and stuff in the trade, and they were broke down. The companies and the They weren't really, it's always a battle to get your shoulder fixed or your knee fixed or your back or whatever. They're always
Yeah.
broke down, right? And I just said, do I want to be there when I'm 60 or 70, right? And I just said no. That's not where I want to be. Do I
Yeah.
want to continue to show up to a mindless job? I mean, at some point, there's a lot of exciting things that happen. There's a lot of technical changes that happen. Um, but at some point, it's almost the same thing. It's almost the same grind.
Yeah.
And I was just done with that. Really wasn't allowed to go outside the box per se, and on my own and take chances on my own. So I just kind of, I don't know, man, just went with that. I think it was years probably in the making,
Yeah.
but once I kind of found some guys that were making money through wholesaling, and I just glommed onto them, and I was like, this is doable, and I need to go for it. And
Yeah.
I had a good runway set up, and just went for that. Had a good plan. Yeah.
So when you made that plan, did you kind of put any sort of timeline on the plan? Like, were you like, hey,
Mm.
I want to kind of learn all this and then maybe move to this? Like, when well, like, what did that look like for you formulating an actual plan?
I just, one thing that was always stressed to me, and it started out with probably like the Ramsey guy, where it's like understand your personal finances, right? And if
Yeah.
you can control your personal finances, business is about the same. But just getting your personal finances in check, zero debt, or very little,
Right.
knowing where all your money goes, how much extra you have every month or every quarter or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very important, right? And so if you can manage that on a personal level, and this includes like if you have a family, cutting them in on that, right? Like telling your wife, like, hey, we're not spending money on all this stuff. Like it has to be budgeted. And this is what we're going for, setting goals and, hitting those goals, looking at them, paying attention to all that stuff. You got to
Yeah,
do it.
man.
And that's how you become financially I guess say have a financial understanding. And then with that comes power, it comes comfort, it comes confidence. It turns into all these things where that leaving your W-2 doesn't seem like such a big leap. And then you're able to project out and you can say, okay, if I have to cover all of my finances for 6 months out of savings, what does that number look like? Most people can't tell you that,
Yeah.
but I could tell you down to almost the penny.
Yeah.
And it was like, here it is. So you have that in savings, and then you look at reserves and you say, okay, from like, what do I have in reserves I could pull from? Do I have a 401k? Do I have IRAs? Do I have a pension? And am I willing to sacrifice that for what I'm trying to go after? Right? Get
Yeah.
real with yourself. If you're not and you like security, it's not for you. Right? But there wasn't even that thought process in my head. It was just like, I'm sending it because this is what I want. I'm not going to continue to live this, what I thought in my mind was a dull, mundane life.
Yeah.
Right. And I knew what was on the other side of that fence or that wall because I had good mentors. I had guys I was hanging around that said, like, hey, dude, this is where, entrepreneurship can take you, right? Owning your own business. And then time freedom too,
Yeah.
was a huge part of it. Working so many hours, having to work overtime to like make it, a really good job
Yeah.
is not fun.
No, it's not.
And you get in that grind and you just get burnt out. It sucks. And so I'm like, all right, I want to be able to take off Tuesday at 3 o'clock to go watch my kid's basketball game. And I can set that up now,
Yeah.
and ultimately be a part of my kid's life. And then, also being able to provide value to buddies or be able to mentor other guys, stuff that I've learned is feels pretty good,
Yeah,
to me.
absolutely. Yeah.
Anybody that ever calls me up, I ask them, I spend hour or two on the phone with them, right? And I calculate that at the end of the year, man, and it was almost probably close to 50 grand after because I know what my hour is worth a day.
Yeah.
It's a large number, and it calcs up. That's almost like 60, 70 grand a year I spent on the phone mentoring guys, helping them out, and just giving back, right? Like people did to me,
Yeah.
and that's why it just I give it back. It's like this is what we're supposed to do. And
Yeah,
that's come
that's
back around. Like you said, you put it out there and it comes back, dude.
oh, it does. Big
Like,
time.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know how many people I've just helped out, whether it was lending out a piece of equipment or just a little bit of advice they didn't know something about.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm finding myself in their shoes 2 weeks later, calling them up. Hey, dude, what do you got to do for this? And they're like, oh, it's not that big a deal. I'm like, oh, I thought it was a big deal,
Right. Right.
So that helps a lot too.
No, it absolutely does, man.
Mhm.
So when you made that leap, it sounds like it sounds like you were burned out.
Totally,
Yeah,
dude.
just burned out, just wanting something else. And man, I get that. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I remember when I was, working for someone else, the company I worked for, it was a lot of overtime, a lot of grinding.
Mhm.
And I remember just like not being super happy, like, just
Sucks, right?
and then but, and then as you know, though, like, starting a business and getting your feet wet in entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
I mean, it can be a lot more time and a lot more of a grind, but I found that it was a lot more fulfilling being that I was working on my own stuff,
Oh, yeah.
right? And I found that personally I was happier,
Mhm.
on a lot of levels.
Totally, man. I 100% agree with that, and I think that's probably a lot of entrepreneurs feeling is all those same things. I mean, I
Yeah.
talk to a lot of guys that are in the tech industry, and they working long hours coding or doing whatever they're doing, and they're just burnt out, man.
Yeah.
There's no, I think everyone's wired their own way, but us entrepreneurs, we're always wanting to learn, I think. And if you're in a position where you're not learning anymore or not, there's no future value for you in that,
Yeah.
it becomes difficult, man, to stay in that position.
Yeah.
For me, it was never about money. I never became a lineman about the money. There's some dudes that like the money. I always fought for the money because it was just a battle. It was like, hey, we got to make sure we're getting compensated correctly.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was like about learning and the adventure and the camaraderie and all those things, right? And once like some of that stuff stopped, it became burnout. It was like, this sucks, man. There's not, we don't have the opportunity to go use helicopters every day. So that was cool. We don't have opportunity to go get more training on electrical stuff, right? Like, I mean, I went down there. I'm also a meterman, right? So I'm a journeyman meterman. Um, I went back to school. They sent me back to school. So I went on the company's dime. I went and got a college degree. So it's like all these things I kept wanting to learn more and learn more and learn more. And once I
Yeah.
figured out that how my brain worked and how a lot of guys' brains work, I could do that. And I'll tell you one thing that does too, as an employer, it really helped me and help to understand how to incentivize employees correctly to where they feel comfortable and they feel taken care of because not all of them want money. Some want to learn, some
Yeah.
want recognition, some want different things. So when I go to hire people, I always find out how are they motivated? What do you want out of this? If you can build your world and have them inside of your world and have them excelling too, then they're going to stick with you for a while because they're getting fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
led to like a lot of those things of just self reflection and like looking back and saying, what would I want? And then how does this person want to be? Right. Like not just the golden rule, but the platinum rule
Yeah.
and applying that. And then it's like, okay, cool. Now we have people we can lean on and trust and they're fully bought in.
So this is more of a personal question. How long did it take you in your life to figure that piece of that out that you just
Mm.
explained to me? Because this is something that I ponder a lot, and I know me myself the last couple of years, my mindset has changed drastically than it was 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and even more drastically than it was 15 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, and man, I just think it's one of those things you get with age, but I really wish that I could have figured out like just being more mindful about some of these things, earlier in my life. I think I would have saved myself a lot of headache and a lot of heartache. But I mean, what do you think on that, man? Is it
Oh.
something that's taken you a lot of trial and error, a lot of fucking things up, a lot of doing things the wrong way to kind of figure
Mhm.
some things out?
All the above, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you're right, man. Just I think age is a big deal. You finally begin to settle down a little bit.
Yeah.
We're being, I think, just inherently as blue collar workers, we weren't that mold that sat at a desk and did white collar work, right?
Right.
Um, so we do go out and beat our heads against the wall a little bit, and just kind of force our way through things.
Yeah.
But then after a while, we start saying, "Oh, damn, my head hurts." And how do I get smarter? And that motivation just comes from internally a little bit
Yeah.
and learning how to slow down. I will say that the biggest cheat code that I have learned is getting around those people that are ahead of you
Yeah.
and really like embracing what they're saying, those theories and those little things that how they're mentoring you, right? Listening to them and just saying, okay, I know they made this mistake. He told me not to do this. I need to pay attention here.
Yeah.
Um, being a little bit more vulnerable, it's like a word that is like a keynote word every day, right?
Yeah.
And as a lineman or as any trades guy, right? We don't go up on the job site and we're like, "Hey, man, how you feeling today?" It's like that doesn't happen, right? So once I
Right.
removed myself out of that environment and got myself into my own environment and surrounded myself with guys that would talk about their feelings or you know begin to understand how to talk with employees or just other business people,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
it really fast tracked my mind to like, for me to succeed at what I'm trying to do, I have to change not only me internally, but I have to change my learning and what I'm learning about and what I'm opening my mind up to, right?
Yeah.
Um, and with that just came it snowballs, you know, it goes a lot quicker when you're around those other people
Yeah.
like that. So it's kind of a cheat code.
No, it is, man.
Um,
I mean, and like there is this stigma, right, around like talking about your feelings and like
mhm,
talking, like having some of these more meaningful conversations to, help alleviate your stress and
mhm,
whatnot. And man, it took me forever to figure that out, man.
mhm,
I mean, and as a blue collar guy in the trades, nobody talks about that.
mhm,
It's like, oh, you're gonna go see a therapist, you're a pussy. Like that's what a lot of dudes say, man. And but that stigma is somewhat changing. Like I
mhm,
talk to more and more people. I mean, just like with you today. I mean,
mhm,
it's just that it's interesting the conversation kind of led to this point. But um yeah, dude, I know a lot of people who could benefit from that. And
mhm,
I'll just say it. I mean, I've benefited from talking to a therapist.
mhm.
I mean, and boy, there's all kinds of layers to that conversation, but
Oh, right.
it if you're struggling, man, like
Mhm.
it's a great way to not fucking struggle anymore, or to at least
Yeah,
help you in your struggle.
that's right.
I mean, as an entrepreneur and just a man in general, I mean, I carry all kinds of loads of stress,
Mhm,
and the last few years it's weighed on me.
mhm,
And like just trying to figure out ways to deal with those things.
mhm,
Um but yeah, man, if anyone is listening that is struggling with something like that, like
mhm,
I would highly encourage you to change your mindset and
mhm.
look at it, a little differently. And you're not a pussy if you need to go
Mhm.
talk to a therapist, or
Right.
if you need to seek a little bit of help. Like
Mhm.
there's all kinds of people that struggle in silence,
Oh, dude,
and
yeah.
it's
That's
it's rough, man.
it is. That's a big deal, man. That was a big deal for me too. I mean, being a lineman, we didn't have to care what people's feelings were, right? And same thing with being an electrician, apply any blue collar job, right?
Yeah,
You're on the job, all the stuff you talked about. Um, but yeah, if anyone is listening out there, there is other ways to conduct yourself in life. And for me, going to the bar every night at Friday night, and partying with the buddies all weekend and being out of town working, and you went to the bar every night, like quitting drinking was a huge part of that, and
yeah,
understanding that, like, hey man, you got to get out of this stuck grind that you're in. And luckily my wife is amazing, and she's helped me out with a lot of that stuff and made me more aware of it. um but yeah, man, it's there's a lot of stuff with that too. I agree, man. Get to see a therapist, talk with them. They're awesome people. They'll help you work through a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of old school mentality in the trades that shouldn't be there, that doesn't need to be there.
yeah,
I always get, so one thing that really ticks me off is when like a lot of these old school dudes are like, oh, they're a Gen Z or whatever, Gen X,
yeah,
and I call bullshit. I call bullshit because it's like, hey, dude, you're the one there teaching these apprentices, man. Like that's on you, bro. They're like that because of you,
yeah,
and they're not like a certain way because you're not teaching them that. And so I always got along really well with all the young apprentices because I was very open-minded. I was kind of from the younger generation, but still had some old school stuff.
yeah,
But we didn't have to be certain ways with those younger guys, right? They would still learn, they'd still excel, they'd still have motivation, they'd still do the job great, and it was just different. So I hope it's changing,
yeah,
but you're right, man. And one thing that was really tough going from like that structured world and that old school world to like entrepreneurship, where I was able to have good sit down conversations with other entrepreneurs, how they're conducting themselves during the day, how they time management, how they deal with their wives, how they deal with their kids, how they deal with some of those pressures, and being open and talking about it. Dude, anytime anyone goes to be an entrepreneur, you're going to hit those walls of like, just breaking down and crying, dude. Like there's
yeah,
a lot, man. I mean, I've wrote checks bigger than most people's houses. And when that doesn't go right, dude, like
yeah,
it starts weighing on you, bro. And it's like, oh, a brand new pickup just went down the drain. Like that's a lot of money, you
yeah,
know? And like, how am I going to come back from that? And so you just buckle down, you just talk with other dudes and they just talk you out of it. And you go, okay, I'm going to keep going. So there's been struggles. It's not all, a lot of times why I don't like social media is because you get a lot of those people that only talk about the good stuff.
right, Right.
90% of it's bad stuff,
Yeah.
but the 10% is really good, you know?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
man. And especially, like earlier in the conversation, you kind of talked about how right now the blue collar guys are in a good position.
Mhm,
And I think those blue collar guys that are entrepreneurial, or the guys that might have that entrepreneurial bug,
mhm,
are in a really good position,
mhm,
especially with AI coming in very swiftly. I mean, I think Oracle just eliminated 30,000 jobs overnight. um that's just going to become more and more of a thing, right?
mhm.
And I'm not saying that the trades guys are completely protected from AI kind of getting into our space, but we're a lot more protected than a guy who's writing code.
Right.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
do.
And one of my main goals with this pod is to kind of educate these younger blue collar guys
Mhm,
on, hey man, like if you can buckle down on your finances, if you can do this, if you can do that,
mhm,
this is where you can get ultimately, right?
mhm,
I mean, I do pretty good. I mean, I started, went to Perry Tech when I was 19 years old.
mhm,
I have a lot of time invested in this, but
mhm,
shit, I'm a kid who grew up in trailer courts, man.
mhm,
I I didn't really get handed anything.
mhm,
I mean, and growing up, I mean, I had all the necessities I needed. My folks
mhm,
did as best a job they could, and they did a pretty good job of getting me the things I needed. But by no means was it like we didn't have a swimming pool, and we didn't have nice shit. I mean, I literally grew up in trailer courts like
Yeah,
most of my life. Riding BMX bikes around with the trailer park gang was like an everyday thing
that's right.
in my childhood.
Yeah.
But a lot of these guys, man, if you latch on to somebody who has done it before, or if
Mhm,
you can follow the steps of somebody who has done it before,
mhm,
it can easily be done. And it's just a
totally.
matter of buckling down with your finances
Mm,
is such a big thing. I mean, you
yeah,
touched on it.
yeah.
I mean, if you can save your money and you can be mindful about what you spend your money on,
Mhm,
like I've told some of my son's kids, it's like, hey man, get into the trades, buy yourself a little Toyota truck, start buying your tools,
yeah,
learn a few things. By the time you're
yeah.
19, be out doing some side work, making some flow.
Yeah,
It
dude.
it you know, and so I hope some of these kids like get that,
Mhm, mhm,
and I have a plan to do a 3-part series just on blue collar financial stuff,
mhm.
and I'm going to kind of lay out exactly how I did it.
Perfect.
From the time I started kind of making my plan when I was 19.
Mhm,
And man, if you're mindful with your money and you learn a trade, like really learn a trade, like don't just hop in for a year and dabble. Like you got to commit 5, 7, 8, 10 years to learning the trade,
mhm.
right? Like it was a 4-year process just for your apprenticeship, and it probably took you another 5 or 6 to be like, I'm a fucking man.
That's right.
Right?
That's right, yeah.
And I'll say it took me a total of 10 years to get to a point to where I was like, "All right, like, I think I could go out
Mhm.
and be pretty fucking good." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude,
I
totally.
mean, it
Like, the most dangerous guy on a job site is the first year journeyman,
Yep,
right?
that's what they say, man.
Yeah,
That's what they say, because 'cause
yeah.
you're just it's like, okay, you got a card in your pocket, but you're still
Mm,
learning.
yeah, and you got all the responsibility and freedom to be a
Yeah.
journeyman, and it's like, how do you handle those decisions, you know?
100%, man.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the game plan is there,
Mhm,
and if you make the right moves
mhm.
and you save your money and you have some good credit to kind of help you get going,
That's right.
I mean, it's not rocket science, man.
That's right.
It's not rocket science, and it's just all about kind of getting a game plan in place
Mhm.
and executing a game plan.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man, and hopefully we can be, a lot of times, coming from kind of the same as a young kid growing up, we didn't ever have a lot of money, so I mean, our dirt bikes. When I say we are dirt biking, it was like the old school dirt bikes, man.
Yeah.
Like we didn't get the new shit. We got like the shit someone was selling out of the garage. We
Yeah.
fixed it up, right? But coming from that mentality, you kind of, I mean, you learn how to fight, you learn how to battle in life, just in general, growing up with all that stuff. But you don't really see what it can be until you get around those folks that have excelled and created that level. So it's almost like you get stuck in like this grind of like, hey, I don't know what to do. Like, is it possible that isn't in your mind?
It's
And
not. Yeah.
I still have this kind of like, I don't know what you call it, personality trait per se of like, I feel bad. And I feel like not bad for myself, but like bad that, what's the word I'm thinking of, man? I don't want to be like cocky or anything, right? But other people have been like, I don't think I help anybody, right? But other people are like, dude, you set such a good example. And like for the people, like think back where you were when you met those dudes that were at a level that you were like, there's no way I can ever attain that.
Yeah.
But you knew that they did it somehow. And so it just that little switch got put in my mind to like, okay, we have to be there and we have to reach back down and like let these dudes know, like, hey man, if you see like I have tons of young guys that are blue collar guys. I can see in them like they have potential. They're
Yeah.
trying hard, but they don't know the direction quite yet.
100%.
So I
Yeah.
always try and like reach down to those guys and be like, hey dude, how's things looking for you? What are you doing for the future? Like asking them bigger questions to get them to think farther ahead.
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, well, you're gonna be doing this for the next 15 years? Well, I don't know. What are you doing with your money right now? How's that looking?
I'm buying a brand new truck.
Buying a brand new truck, I'm buying a brand new car, whatever, all this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, all right. And trust me, I came from that, dude. I had a full on race team, off road race team with my race truck and all this stuff, right? I blew
Yeah.
money like crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I made 250 grand a year and I only needed like 40 to live on. So what does a young guy go do, right? Like I had all the toys, I had all the fun.
Yeah.
Um, but after a while, it was like, man, I look back now, I'm like, I could have bought so many houses. I could have done
Right.
so much better for myself. So
Yeah.
if I can catch a guy earlier, like my younger brother, he's a perfect example, man. He's 26 right now. Um, he said, "What do I want to do?" Right, and he was like, "I want to be a lineman." So okay, go do this lineman test. He didn't have any blue collar experience at all, no work experience at all. Period.
Yeah.
So he went over to the hall, took the test, got his class A, did all the stuff, and they're like, "Look, dude, you scored like 250th on the apprenticeship committee." They go. I think they take like probably the top 100 every year or something.
Yeah.
And they called him back the next day and they were like, "Hey, you scored number one on the tree trimmer apprenticeship." And he was like, he called me and he's like, "Hey, dude, do you think I should take that?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, you should take it. That's your in, man."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, they told me if I got done with this apprenticeship, then I would score real high on the alignment apprenticeship." He's
100%.
18 years old, bro.
Yeah.
He's got a job that he made damn near 100 grand a year. Went through a 2-year apprenticeship as a tree trimmer, learned a lot of rigging, learned how to climb, learned how to work on a crew.
Yeah.
Went back like almost within the month that he journeyed out, scored number one at the apprentice alignment apprenticeship in the Northwest, got a job, went through the apprenticeship. Now he's down working in Phoenix, lives in Phoenix. He's a journeyman, does great, owns a house, already talking about getting rid of that one as a rental,
Yeah.
buying another one. He's going to be so much farther ahead than I am, especially because I'm big brother and I get to help him out. And I'll take all his money and put it in my investments somewhere along the line and make him way farther ahead, but for me, it's like, if I can get it to work with him, I know I can get it to work with other guys.
Yeah.
And eventually, I'd like to build something up where I can bring in those guys that are blue collar, that want to learn how to invest, bring them on as partners in a deal. Say, hey, here's how this works. You got to put some skin in the game, save up some money.
Yeah.
Ain't that hard to
100%.
save up 25, 30, 40, 50 grand?
Yeah.
Don't go sell that pickup. Don't go out to drink every night, whatever it is.
Right.
And if we can help them steer them in those directions and build budgets for them and show them what that means, they're going to be so much farther ahead. They're going to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And, when you think about it, if we could have dudes like that running companies that run our country, we're going to be in a way better spot. And it starts with us.
It does, man. It starts,
Right?
it starts at this level, right?
Yeah.
It does. And it starts with getting like-minded dudes or, women too.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts with getting like-minded folks like on the same page, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the same game plan.
Yep.
Because you're right, man. If those are the kind of people who are running companies and providing jobs and providing housing, and
Mm-hmm.
if people like that start dabbling in local politics, school
Yes.
boards,
Yes.
that's how we start making a real shift in this country.
That's right, man. And you've worked for enough different people. You probably know too. Back in the day, we had a lot of companies that were run by the dudes that started doing the trade, that built it up. That even if it was running a company at said point where they're at of being a CEO or some large corporation, they saw a lot of those guys came from working in the factory all the way through the ranks, right?
Yeah.
And then they made those logical, smart decisions as a business guy. It wasn't based on a Wall Street venture capitalist coming in, putting in a hired gun as a CEO and milking the shit out of that company, right?
Yeah.
And then we go to work for those companies and we're like, why is this such a shitty place to work? Like, why don't we have all the right tools? Why don't we have nice trucks? Well, it's because our guys haven't bridged the gap of going from a blue collar guy to understanding some sort of finance. Yes, it does suck and it is hard, but it's manageable.
It is.
And then
Yes.
putting ourselves in those leadership positions to run and own those companies, to sell those companies, to level up, to partner up at a level that you and I hopefully will be at one day, where it's like, maybe you had a sellout of a company, or a windfall or something happened, right? And maybe I did, and maybe a couple of our other buddies did, and we're like, hey, you know what? We got a lot of knowledge, we got a lot of energy and capital. Let's get together and let's go buy this larger company. Let's run it like it should be. And we have that, right? So that's my dream, and my focus is one day to be at that level with a bunch of other good dudes,
Yeah.
because we will walk all over those guys that just get out of college, that don't know anything about that. Yeah, they may be really good at like one thing in finance or one thing in HR, but they don't have the real life experience
Yeah.
to drive this country where we need to be to, right? It goes along with that same mentality of those guys complaining about all those younger guys, how, oh, they don't know shit, they just sit on the computer all day long.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you go out and give them a job to do, give them something to build, but wrap their mind around something physical? Like my son, dude, they're all the same. They're a teenager, right? They're all teenagers. We were at one point too, until someone came to me and was like, hey, here's how a welder works.
Right.
Like, you can melt two pieces of metal together and build this erector set.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, that's cool. Wait, how does this chop saw work? Oh, wait, what do you mean? I can do 100 miles an hour across the desert in something I built?
Yeah.
Holy crap, this is badass.
Right.
So once you kind of get somebody motivated towards the right thing, they're going to be off to the races.
100%.
And it's just, but we have to provide that. It's the same thing in business,
Yeah, man. And like these younger kids, you brought it up a couple times. Like, dude, I have a young crew right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a bit of a rebuilding year for us. I've lost a couple of key players this year that both have moved on to. One of my guys, he's had his own business for years,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going full out on his own, doing his metal fab business. He's gonna kill it. He's a smart dude, and I know he's gonna do great. And another one of my leads, he took a job with the state, and so I have a younger crew now. And the last couple months, like, I've been out with them a lot more. And dude, there's a lot of these guys that I talk to that are like, man, this generation coming up, like, they're kind of bad mouthing. But dude, I got some dudes that work for me right now, the younger guys that are fucking studs, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was helping this kid, Chris, that works for me, do some troubleshooting on this house that we're doing. And I was kind of scratching my head, and I was like, I'm just going to see if he can figure this out. Like, and he figured it out. And I thought it was kind of complex. And I was like, dude, that was good. Like
Doesn't
that
that
was
feel
good shit.
good, dude? There's
And
no better
it
feeling as a business owner than that,
yeah, dude. And it
or
does.
a mentor.
I'm super pumped with all the younger guys that I have, man. They're
Mhm.
all highly trainable.
Yeah.
And, but it is a different thing, like, kind of learning how to get to some of these younger guys these
Mhm.
days. They have a different mentality um, than I was brought up with.
Mhm.
I came through the trade with a lot of guys that were like, fucking suck it up, pussy. Like, let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, let's get it done. Like, move your ass. It was kind of a
Yeah.
more of a military style,
Totally.
kind of leadership. And
Mhm.
I found a lot of these younger guys don't respond super well to that.
We didn't respond well to it. That was the only option we
That was the
had.
only option. Yeah. And so, but dude, that is one thing that I'm trying to get better at, is not have that leadership style. Like,
It's tough.
it is tough. And there definitely is a time and place where it's like, hey, we just got to get shit done.
Right.
But also is a time and place where, you can slow it down a little bit.
Mhm.
You can try to bond with these guys. You can try
Mhm.
to teach them. And I've been enjoying that stuff more,
Yeah. Oh,
you know?
dude. Yeah, that's so cool. And it's good to see you're aware of that. Just being aware of that is 90% better than most.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's as a leader, as a business owner, that's its own tool set, learning how to just be on the same page with them, learning how their
Right.
learning style, learning their motivation, all that stuff comes with, and that's kind of a cool challenge for you too, I'm sure.
Yeah, it
You
is,
know?
man. Yeah, it is. Another thing we're looking at doing is it's going to take us probably another 6 months or so, but we're starting our own apprenticeship.
Perfect.
And so the state of Washington has made some changes the last couple of years.
Mhm.
Um, they're pretty much forcing everybody's hand. It used to be you could just get all your hours in the field and go
Mhm.
take the test. That's not the case anymore. So
Mm.
instead of joining, the apprenticeship in Tri-Cities, we're pretty much all the contractors around here have decided to kind of start their own.
That's fantastic,
And
man.
so that's what we're gonna do. We're in the thick of that right now, and
Mhm.
um, man, I'm actually really excited about that, man.
That's gonna be cool, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if you ever, I know for me, I'm always willing to show and teach what I know about stuff.
yeah,
And a lot of times in those apprenticeships, if you can get just even if it doesn't count as their hours, understanding and getting your guys understanding like where you guys hook up to the grid, how does power initially get generated? Like that
yeah,
little bit of extra knowledge will help them understand what comes out of the outlet, right?
100%. Yeah,
All the way from the beginning. Like how does power go from, you know, uh 26 kV or 12 kV or 4 kV? How does it get transformed? What does that look like?
yeah,
Like what is the utility looking for on the meter base side, right? What are CTs? How do those work? Like,
yeah,
all that stuff, right? So like I'm always willing to come in and help out and give that information and knowledge and pass it down too.
yeah. That'd be
It's
awesome, man.
enjoyable.
Yeah,
But just give some experience towards that too.
yeah,
And sometimes it
absolutely.
helps just different perspective, coming from a little bit different trade, but still in the electric world, or
Right,
those guys hearing it too. I mean, we had tons of electricians come in, just they were electricians at the utility, but hearing like on their side, like, oh wow, I didn't notice that, or like, why do you come into a meter panel on the side versus right in the center?
right,
You know how many electricians I chewed their ass? I'm like, come on, bro. I got to pull 4-aught wire here, and it's literally 2 inches below the meter socket.
right.
Are you or I shouldn't say that. What were you thinking? And then once they see it, they're like, I guess I never thought about that. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
and then unfortunately for them, rip it all off the house, retrim it, all the stuff.
yeah, yeah,
And, but it's just stuff like that sometimes might help a little bit.
yeah. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what's next for you, man? Like you're going hard at the storage unit stuff. You have any other big lofty goals that you're trying to accomplish, like either on a
Mm.
professional or a personal level?
Professionally, I think I've got it where I'm pretty comfortable going forward with the
Yeah,
self storage stuff. There's a lot to still learn there. There's a lot to still progress. Um, so I think just growing that. I think professionally, it'll probably be dabbling a little bit more in the bringing in investors stages of stuff.
yeah,
Syndicating, maybe taking down a larger facility with some syndication. Um, Understanding more on that side of things will probably be professionally like where I grow to.
yeah,
um, I think personally, I'm pretty new to entrepreneurship as full time, right? So learning how to time manage, I've got a really good grasp on it now. It's taken me like at least a year to really get that down.
yeah,
But I think still, feeling comfortable that I don't have to work 8 hours a day if I don't want to. Like I can take off, get up at 5 and work till 9,
yeah,
and then take off from like 9 to like 1 and go play golf, or say, be done at 11 o'clock if my kid gets out of school early and go pick him up and go play golf, or
yeah,
if the wife says, hey, I need this done. I can do that as an entrepreneur, and I need to feel comfortable more in that,
yeah,
because that's one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur,
yeah.
right?
That's one of the biggest
But
upsides.
as a blue collar guy, it doesn't feel right, right? Because if
Right.
I'm not working, I'm not making money,
Yeah,
right? It's a
yeah,
billable hour type thing, right? But on a personal side, that and just learning how to compartmentalize those weights that we do carry.
yeah,
Knowing that, like, hey, you know what? We live in a world where everyone's human still, and this isn't going to get fixed by the end of the day. So just put it in that compartment, shut the door, continue with family life, and that'll be there in the morning to take it back apart,
yeah.
right? And
That's
that's
God. That's a hard thing to do
oh my
sometimes, though, isn't
god,
it?
yeah,
Yeah, because it's like there's all these things, right? And it's like, okay, well, I just need to put that fucker in the box for a minute because I ain't gonna be able to do anything about it.
you're right.
But being able to actually do that and
Mhm.
not sit there and dwell on it or be fucking upset about
Yeah.
it, oh, it's so
It's
hard.
tough, dude, yeah, so that's been a learning curve,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
especially for me, being a lineman was as far as like, I was always on call, so I have a phone. I have like PTSD from hearing certain phone ringers because I'd be so tired,
yeah,
and that phone would ring, and I'm just like, oh my god, I got to go back out. And so like when that was just life, right? I was always on go all the
yeah,
time. So when I
yeah,
switched to entrepreneurship, it was even worse because it was my own company. There were my own worries. If I didn't do it, then nobody else was. So then I was like, I had to be bought in. It wasn't like I could just click, go to the next guy,
Yeah.
right? So I had to learn how to like really cope with that, right? And work through that and like
Right.
understand that to the point where, like I said, now, luckily, obviously, if someone calls you in the middle of the night, they're like, hey, dude, my panel just burned up, right? They kind of need you there,
Right.
right? To at least get going early in the morning. Like you got to kind of rally the troops. Like,
Yep.
hey, shop the parts warehouse opens at 6. I'll be there to pick up a panel. I'll be over. That's a different story. But
Right.
hey, if the job, I don't know, maybe if it's a new construction job where it's like, oh, we ran out of wire, I got to do all these things. But hey, you know what? We can get all that stuff in the morning. Let's go home, relax, put it off, right? And
Yeah.
same thing with real estate isn't always like pressing. I as much as I make it out to be, it's not really that pressing. But I like to put that customer service ahead, right? If I got a buyer
Yeah.
that's like dealing with me, I do everything I can to make sure he gets all of his documentation on time, everything's set up ahead of time so it's a smooth process,
Right.
right? And sometimes that bleeds into personal time. But in all reality, now I've gotten more mature, I've gotten in a better spot
Yep.
where that stuff doesn't need to happen right away. That person's going to be just as happy. They know I'm going to do just as good of a job in the morning when it needs to be done.
Yeah.
So that was tough, man. So progressing through kind of just the entrepreneur mindset and becoming better at that, I guess, is where I'm really kind of focused for the next years, where I've set some
Yeah.
goals on
Right on,
and
man.
trying to focus. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's about it, man.
That's awesome. Have you ever heard of the program 75 Hard?
I have. I
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. So I've never completed it. I've tried it twice, made it to day 73. Got sicker than fuck, and I ended up not finishing it. But that program, and I will complete it. I will do it.
Good.
But that program helped me immensely with my time management,
Mhm. Mhm.
immensely, because
Yeah.
it's like, there's all these things to do in the day, and sometimes you're overwhelmed. And then it's like when you actually do that program and you add all this extra shit, and you got to like literally plan your day like strategically to get all these things done, you realize it's like, man, dude, like I do have time to get these things done
Mhm.
if I just kind of spend a little bit more time like planning my shit out.
Yeah, if you do a time study and write that out and you're like, "Man, I wasted so many hours of the day,"
Yeah,
and then, like,
yeah,
I almost feel better now, like, if I have a whole plethora of things to do, so I will give a shameless plug, I don't wanna borrow your podcast or anything, but I'm a part of a group called GoBundance.
okay,
If you look up GoBundance or anybody, they'll kinda tell you what they are. It's awesome, man. We do all these different types of things. We focus on certain pillars in our life. They're all, entrepreneurs, that teach those kinds of things, right? And that's a lot
yeah,
of those guys that are doing 75 hard stuff. Um, so with all that, man, it has helped out a lot. And getting with some of those coaches in there and figuring that stuff out, how to figure out time management, um, and just how to focus on those things has really been a big help
yeah,
too. So let's
absolutely,
talk about cheat code. Like I'm sitting next to dudes that their companies are. I got a siding buddy. He's in my pod, accountability pod. Uh, a siding company that's worth probably 25 million,
God, that's insane,
and
man.
I'm picking his brain and he's telling
Yeah,
me his problems. Like we all sign NDAs and so everything's completely confidential,
yeah,
but we're talking about issues that like we're all having. His issues are no different than my issues.
yeah,
The mentality to get through those things is not that big. Like he laughs at me and he'll say, "Oh man, dude, that's easy. Just go do this and this and this."
yeah,
Cheat code. I just go do it and it works.
yeah,
Like hit the send button and it's like, yeah, we as entrepreneurs we're always 70% ready and 70% qualified. We'll figure out the rest on the way down, right? And so, but it gives you the confidence to just go do it. But
yeah,
things like that, 75 hard's great. Seen a lot of guys go through that.
yeah.
Yeah, time management is tough, man.
It is tough, but it's doable.
Totally,
Yeah,
totally,
it's
yeah,
doable. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's the thing, man. Like all these hard things are doable. It's just a matter of like doing them,
doing them.
and
Yeah,
then, and for me, for years, it was like I could do all the things. I just was having a hard time like keeping the stress at bay and keeping like,
dude.
and kind of keeping my mindset right.
Hmm.
And the last couple years, like really like working out regularly and
Yeah.
kind of pouring into that and just kind of, trying to work on my mind a lot.
Hmm.
Those things help, man. You get a
Big
few of
time.
those tools under your belt to kind of help you deal with these things,
Hmm.
and it makes it manageable, right?
Oh, dude, totally. Like I'm a big meditator. Every morning, meditate.
Yeah.
going to play golf for me in the summertime. And the wintertime, it's tough because I haven't found that release yet.
Yeah.
But like, I'll go play 9 holes every morning at like wake up at like 5:30 and just go hit nine real quick by myself, and just like sets myself up for the rest of the day. You
Nice.
know, putting things, I found that like putting like a hard appointment on a schedule, say if it's like, wife and kid get home at 3 o'clock. Treat it like a doctor's appointment. I got till 3 o'clock to get all this stuff done. And I just like start ramping up and going to it.
Yeah.
3 o'clock, I shut it down. I don't care if there's a check that needs to go in the bank. It will happen tomorrow. And that's it, dude. And I just say, cut off, done. Anybody calls, like goes straight to voicemail.
Yeah.
I don't take calls after like 6 o'clock, period. You know, even if buddies are texting me or whatever, done. Hey, I'm done at 6, man, because it will never end. You
Right.
know, so and it's helped. Like
Yeah.
it's helped so much on that mental side of things, dude.
Yeah.
That's tough, bro.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
tough. It really is, man. I mean, coming from that when you talked about military, regime, a lot of those guys as linemen, man, were in the military. That's where it came from. You know, if you make one wrong mistake on a switching order, somebody's dead.
Yeah.
And and
It's a
we
big
had we
deal.
had good buddies pass away.
Yeah.
Um, but you come from that and you start realizing like, hey, there's different ways to look at things. You know, you can actually feel emotion. You can do all these different things, and life becomes a little bit easier. But you still have to learn how to manage yourself.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
tough, man.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
tough.
It is. But dude, it's so good to have, these conversations with guys who,
Mhm.
kind of have the same mindset,
Mhm.
the same goals, and lofty goals, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of guys, even, the younger guys, I mean, set goals, but
Mhm.
one thing I would say is like set them big.
Mm.
Like, I mean, because you don't really know what you can accomplish until you like really start trying.
Yeah, get those BHAGs up, right?
And it's like, for me, I kind of tier my goals and I try to put timelines on them and I don't always hit them, but
Mhm.
I at least have like a direction that I'm trying to go.
Yep.
It,
Yep.
and sometimes it works out better, sometimes, it doesn't, but at least I'm not sitting idle. Like
That's right.
I'm always trying to do something. I'm always
Mhm.
trying to move forward in some
Mhm.
way. And that's a big thing, man.
Yeah, dude. You know, one thing that's always, and I always get like these little ticks, right? I call them like chips on me, right? Like little chips on the shoulder. But like society in general, a lot of their ways is a big chip on my shoulder. But one of them specifically is like getting labeled as like a ADH kid, right?
Yeah.
ADHD. Well, I'll tell you what, dude. Like if we were back in the Stone Age, even a couple years ago, like back in like maybe the 20s or 30s, those ADH kids were the ones that you want in your tribe. They're the ones that you want when you're out hunting shit down, right? They're always moving. They're building a million spears. They're going after all the different animals or
Yeah.
whatever it is they're doing, right? Those are the dudes that are excelling, right? And so they're that's not a hindrance. Our society kind of makes it like it wants to be a hindrance,
Yeah.
and it's not. In all reality, society's failing those people. All right. I was one of those people. Mine's always got to be kind of going on something.
Yeah.
It just needs direction and it needs structure built around how that works. And if the second that I figured out how that works and how I can keep myself busy and point it in the right direction, like what you're talking about, and sometimes it's looking at those BHAGs, those big, hairy, audacious goals, right?
Yeah.
That's like the star in the sky that I'm aiming for. And even if we go and we only make it halfway there, we've done so much better than and learned so much more than if we didn't have that at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it's just like once you get those right kind of people, for me, it's the ADHD kids, right? The ADHD buddies, get them steered in the right direction. Show them like, hey, this is how a budget works. They're very smart people. They
Yeah.
can understand that. And they're like, okay, I can do that. And then once they see it working and the cause and effect part of it, then they're like, how do I get more of that? How
Yeah,
do I
it's like
keep
throwing
doing it?
gas on the fire.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then they're like, oh my God, they're like, it's working. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude, just go work your ass off during these 6 hours during the day. You're gonna get way more done because you're highly effective.
Yeah.
You're going the right direction, making the right decisions, and you do that day after day and a year after year,
Yeah.
dude, they're way farther ahead,
Yeah,
man.
you are, and that's like, and that's like when I first started my business and when it first started catching traction and it was
Mm,
like cashing some checks, and it's like, okay, this is cool, man. And then,
mhm,
as you see yourself gain some momentum, it's like,
mm.
okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like I can do, like I remember, dude, when I started my company, the driving force to start my company was the last guy that I worked for was such a piss poor like owner operator that I was like, if that guy can do it, there is no way that I can't. Like I remember that, and he's a great guy, dude, a
Yeah.
super nice guy, but like his leadership style was here's the prints, go figure it out, and I'm gonna fucking disappear for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so, and I would like look around, and I was like the new journeyman there, and I would look around and I'd be like, that guy is not a very good electrician, and he's like in charge of the whole show. And
Scary.
I made it 3 months there, and I was like, it's it. I'm going out on my own.
Good for
I
you.
was like, I can do this.
Good for you, man.
And so that was, I'll never forget. It was like a aha moment. I was like, if
Mhm.
this guy can do it, there's no way that I can't.
Oh, dude, that's such a good that's so awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I get it, man, and, one of the smartest things someone ever said to me was like, "Everything that we use in our world was built by man, it could be taken apart by man, and it
Yeah,
could be put back together by man.
absolutely.
So why are you worried?
Yeah,
Somebody designed that. There's some rationale behind it. We can figure that out. It just takes, a little bit of learning. And God, nowadays, dude, you got podcasts on just about everything. You got experts talking about
yes,
all of it.
yeah,
How could you not learn? You literally just have to turn on the damn radio,
yeah,
turn off some music, and turn on some shit that you want to learn about.
yeah,
They'll
yeah.
tell you everything you want to know. You
Yep.
don't have to sign up for classes or pay anybody or coaching
There's
or anything.
there's so much
I
free
mean,
info out there.
dude, yeah, it's crazy. And then,
Yeah.
if you can muster up it, I literally didn't read a book until probably like 4 years ago, and I had Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Everyone, that's their
Yep.
first read, right?
Yep.
Any entrepreneur, you ask them, oh, is Rich Dad Poor Dad? It was literally sitting on my desk for like 9 years. Some dude handed it to me way back when I left California, right? Sitting there, got dust on it, everything. And I quit drinking and I was able to actually like focus and read a book.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And I picked it up and I started reading it. And it was the end of the story, dude. I got a library that's probably 200 books full of
Nice.
business and real estate. And, I was all highly motivated to learn that stuff.
Right. Right.
Um, how to implement traction. Like, I don't know if you guys use traction in your business at all. It's a great, great book, dude. It explains how you can structure your business and help out employees and have meetings that are productive and all this other cool stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think Gino Wickman wrote that one, but that's a huge book. Now I know how to run my company and that helped me.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Absolutely.
all the information is there and they either want to sell it to you or they're going to give so much away for free. You can learn it. And I just, man, it's so cool nowadays
Yeah.
on that stuff.
Yeah. Right on, man. So if you could give any advice to that young blue collar guy that's coming up through the trades,
Mhm.
what's some good advice, man? That, I
Mhm.
mean, I kind of ask everybody that, because everybody seems to have a little different take. But
Yeah.
what's your take, man?
Uh, I mean, obviously, if you're in the trade probably already, you probably got a decent work ethic, so you're always gonna have that with you. Don't lose that. Don't lose what drove you in the beginning to do what you're doing, if whether you're a bricklayer, a pile driver, or lineman, or electrician, plumber, whatever kind of that feeling gave you, when you started learning the trade, right? Because I don't care what you're learning, there was a point in life where that was exciting. Like, yeah, you're learning, you're progressing. That feeling, don't ever lose that. If you lose that, then you're just you're off in the wind and you're at somebody else's whim, right? Um, Keep that, man, and use that as like motivation to drive yourself to the next level in your life.
Yeah.
Like, there's always stages in life. Like, everything I've done was there for a reason, and I've learned a lot or didn't learn a lot, or whatever that is. But when you get to that stage, maybe you're a young guy and you go through and you get your apprenticeship done, and you got your journeyman card, and you're feeling good. You do that for a year or two. Then all of a sudden you meet like a gal, right? And now you're getting married, and then you got a kid, and now you got to like make different decisions, learn about that stuff. And hey, you know what? Maybe being a traveling electrician isn't quite what I need. Maybe I need to
Yeah.
go do more at home work and or whatever that is, right? Um, Always keep that learning desire with you, and you'll progress into whatever you want to learn it and go get to that next level, like whatever that is, because our world is changing so drastically,
God, rapidly.
dude, that you cannot predict like what is going to happen. So being able to pivot and being able to learn and being adaptive is the number one thing that I can recommend to any of those guys to keep in their tool belt, of just staying positive, knowing that there's always going to be something there for them to do, and use that, man.
Absolutely.
You know?
Dude, that's such good advice, man. It's good perspective. If you're willing to just learn, and if you're willing to pivot and change your plan on the fly.
Mhm.
I always say, having a plan is very crucial, right? But being able to pivot when things come up, or
Mhm.
being able to kind of alter that plan on the fly to keep making forward progress
Mhm.
is it's crucial, man. It's crucial
Yeah.
to get to the next step. Um, guys, like some of my advice on that is budget your money, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's a big thing, man. And so, just to kind of plug the next handful of episodes, I'm going to be breaking down some of my methods of saving money, building credit, and kind of getting into that first house and potentially flipping that first house. So, um, if you found value here, check out the next few episodes because I am going to kind of lay out a uh, a very rudimentary roadmap, but a simple roadmap that anybody could follow to kind of get your finances in check and to kind of save your money, get into that first house, and really kind of gain some traction in your life like early on from that 17, 18-year old to that 24, 25-year old. I'm going to lay out that plan that if you start executing it when you're 18, by the time you're 25, you can have bought and sold a house and have 100 grand in the bank. That's kind of the plan that I'm going to lay out. It's a very realistic plan and it's an easy plan to execute. All right, guys, that's all I have for you. I want to thank Shane for coming on again, man. It was a great conversation, a ton of good information. If you guys found value here, give us a like, give us a share, tell your friends. This is Josh at Wired Watt Smart. Dude, that was awesome.
Right on. Cool. Yeah, man. All that stuff, dude, is